The Joseph Conrad Countdown. 10 novels to rule the tides of his imagination. Joseph Conrad didn't learn English until his 20s, yet he went on to reshape English prose. Born Joseph Theodor Conrad Korzeniowski in 1857 in what is now Ukraine, Conrad lived the life of adventure his characters often dream of. Years at sea, voyages through dangerous waters, encounters with the raw frontiers of empire. His fiction is a fusion of nautical precision, psychological depth, and moral complexity. His novels are full of storms, both literal and human. Ships founder, hearts waver, loyalties fracture. The sea is often the stage, but the drama is always rooted in the fragile, contradictory nature of people under pressure. Conrad was as fascinated by the darkness in human ambition as he was by the grandeur of the oceans. Here we chart a course through his 10 greatest novels, from a promising but lesser-known work at number 10 to the towering masterwork at number 1 that embodies everything we mean when we say Joseph Conrad. 10. The Rover, 1923. Conrad's final completed novel, The Rover, is an understated, autumnal tale. Gone are the fevered tropical harbours and violent monsoons of his earlier work. In their place is the gentle but treacherous blue of the Mediterranean, set during the Napoleonic Wars. The protagonist, Peyrolle, is an aging French privateer who has spent decades in the service of various causes, some patriotic, some mercenary, and now wants only peace in a farmhouse near Toulon. But the past does not let go so easily. A plot involving British forces, local revolutionaries, and a mysterious young woman draws him back into a web of espionage. The Mediterranean is painted not as an exotic stage, but as a place of retirement and reflection. Conrad uses Peyrolle's isolation to examine the longing for a safe harbour after a life of moral compromise and danger. Every choice Peyrolle makes is filtered through his sense of honour, battered but still intact. Why number 10? While not as electrifying as Nostromo or Lord Jim, it's a final statement of Conrad's abiding interest in loyalty, identity, and the costs of a life spent on the margins. For readers, it's a slow, reflective farewell from a master. 9. An Outcast of the Islands, 1896. Conrad's second novel plunges the reader into the oppressive, humid world of the East Indies, a setting he knew from his own voyages. Peter Willems, a corrupt Dutch trader, is disgraced in Singapore and takes refuge in a remote native settlement under the patronage of Captain Lingard, one of Conrad's recurring heroic figures. Willems is a fascinating study in moral weakness. He has intelligence and charm, but no guiding compass, and in the pressure cooker of the settlement, his vanity and appetites consume him. His affair with Isa, the daughter of a local chief, becomes the pivot around which betrayal and cultural conflict turn. Conrad's evocation of the jungle, thick with vines, buzzing with insects, oppressive in its stillness, mirrors the moral quicksand into which Willems sinks. This is a world in which isolation magnifies flaws, and small decisions can tip the balance between survival and ruin. Why number 9? Because it marks the beginning of Conrad's deep dive into the destructive potential of moral weakness under pressure. While uneven in pacing, it foreshadows the rich psychological and cultural interplay that would define his mature work. 8. The Arrow of Gold, 1919. This is Conrad in an unusually romantic and political mood. Set in Marseille during the Carlist Wars of the 1870s, the unnamed narrator is recruited to smuggle arms to Spanish royalists. The mission, though dangerous, is overshadowed by his involvement with Doña Rita, beautiful, wealthy, and the gravitational center for a circle of men bound to her in various ways. The novel's landlocked setting allows Conrad to explore a different kind of navigation, the currents of salons, cafes, and the intimate exchanges of lovers and conspirators. Doña Rita is one of his most enigmatic female characters, poised between strength and vulnerability, using her allure as both weapon and shield. While less taut than his nautical adventures, The Arrow of Gold offers a rich portrait of political idealism entangled with personal desire. Conrad's prose here is lavish, almost meditative, lingering over interiors, clothing, and the subtleties of gesture. Why number 8? It's a departure that proves Conrad's command of human psychology extended beyond the deck of a ship. For readers interested in the interplay of politics and passion, it's an underappreciated gem. 7. The Rescue, 1920. Part of the so-called Lingard trilogy, The Rescue was begun early in Conrad's career, but not completed until decades later. This long gestation gives the novel a layered texture, the youthful taste for exotic adventure married to the mature writer's moral nuance. Captain Tom Lingard's attempt to aid a stranded English couple in the Malay archipelago seems straightforward, but quickly evolves into a delicate negotiation with local rulers, shifting alliances and romantic undercurrents. Lingard must balance his loyalty to the couple with his obligations to his Malay allies, and the tension between these worlds is the novel's beating heart. The jungle channels and coastal waters are described with Conrad's customary precision, the weather and tides becoming characters in their own right. The rescue itself is less about daring seamanship than about understanding, or failing to understand, the human currents at play. Why number 7? It shows Conrad's gift for combining high adventure with intricate moral decision-making, and it's a testament to his ability to sustain atmosphere over a long, slow-burning narrative. 6. The Secret Agent, 1907. With The Secret Agent, Conrad trades the open sea for the claustrophobic streets of London. This is a novel about espionage, political violence, and, at its core, a marriage hollowed out by deceit. Verloc, a shopkeeper and double agent, is ordered by his handlers to carry out an act of terrorism, the bombing of the Greenwich Observatory, to discredit anarchists and spur a crackdown. But the plan goes tragically wrong, and the fallout unravels his personal life in devastating ways. Conrad blends satire and tragedy here, skewering the incompetence and cynicism of spies, anarchists, and bureaucrats alike. His portrayal of Winnie Verloc, trapped in a loveless marriage, making a shocking choice when the truth emerges, gives the novel its emotional punch. Why number 6? Because it demonstrates Conrad's range. He could map the moral weather of a household as deftly as he charted a storm at sea, and he could anticipate the psychological realities of terrorism with chilling foresight. Femta, Under Western Eyes, 1911. Often called Conrad's Russian novel, Under Western Eyes is a response to Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, refracted through Conrad's own skepticism toward revolutionary politics. Razumov, a student in St. Petersburg, becomes implicated in the assassination of a government minister. Caught between the secret police and the revolutionaries, he navigates a treacherous path of deception. In Geneva, among the émigré community, his duplicity and self-loathing grow ever more corrosive. Conrad's genius here is in the psychological layering. Razumov's justifications, fears, and betrayals are rendered with suffocating intimacy. The political intrigue is gripping, but it's the portrait of a man collapsing under the weight of his own compromises that lingers. Why number 5? Because it marries the espionage elements of The Secret Agent to the moral depth of Lord Jim, offering a bleak but compelling vision of political idealism undone by human frailty. 4. The Nigger of the Narcissus, 1897. This short novel is a milestone in Conrad's career, marking the point where his command of English and his thematic ambitions fully aligned. The voyage from Bombay to London aboard the Narcissus becomes a crucible for its multinational crew when James Waite, a black West Indian sailor, falls gravely ill. Waite's illness forces questions about duty, solidarity, and prejudice into the open. Is the crew's care for him genuine or tinged with self-interest and resentment? The voyage tests not only seamanship but also the bonds between men in confined, dangerous conditions. Conrad's descriptions of the sea are lyrical without excess. The roll of the ship, the sting of salt spray, the eerie calm before a storm. The sea here is not a romantic backdrop. It's an impartial force that magnifies human strengths and weaknesses. Why number 4? Because it condenses Conrad's great themes, leadership, community, endurance, into a taut narrative that reads like an initiation into his moral universe. 3. Lord Jim, 1900. One of Conrad's most beloved novels, Lord Jim is the saga of a young British seaman whose single act of cowardice, abandoning a ship full of passengers in a moment of crisis, defines his life. Narrated largely by Marlowe, the philosophical seaman from Heart of Darkness, the novel follows Jim's self-imposed exile to a remote Malay settlement where he earns the trust of the locals and tries to live up to an ideal of honor he once betrayed. Jim's story is as much about the narratives we tell ourselves as it is about actual deeds. His pursuit of redemption is noble, but Conrad refuses to give him an easy absolution. The ending, a deliberate acceptance of death rather than a compromise of principles, is tragic and fitting. Why number 3? Because it's an epic of the inner life as much as the outer, and Jim's struggle to reconcile who he is with who he wants to be is universally resonant. Second, Nostromo, 1904. A monumental novel set in the fictional South American Republic of Costaguana, Nostromo is Conrad's panoramic study of imperialism, capitalism, and the corrosive allure of wealth. The San Tome silver mine is both the literal and symbolic treasure at the center of the novel. Its riches draw in foreign capitalists, local politicians, revolutionaries, and crucially, Nostromo himself, an Italian stevedore renowned for his incorruptibility. When entrusted with safeguarding a shipment of silver during political upheaval, Nostromo makes a choice that will define and destroy him. The novel's multiple perspectives and intricate political backdrop make it challenging, but the payoff is immense. A tapestry of human ambition, folly, and betrayal on a grand scale. Why number 2? Because it's Conrad at his most ambitious, creating not just characters, but an entire political ecosystem, and showing how personal vanity can warp even the most steadfast spirit. 1. Heart of Darkness, 1899. Though technically a novella, Heart of Darkness overshadows many full-length novels in influence and reputation. Marlowe's journey upriver in the Belgian Congo to find the enigmatic Kurtz is both a literal expedition and a symbolic descent into the darkest recesses of the human soul. The journey strips away the veneer of European civilization to reveal exploitation, greed, and brutality. Kurtz, once an idealist, has been consumed by the wilderness and his own unchecked power. His dying words, the horror, are as much a verdict on himself as on the colonial enterprise. Conrad's dense, layered prose makes the river and jungle oppressive, dreamlike, and inescapable. The story's ambiguity, about the nature of Kurtz's horror, about what Marlowe has truly learned, is the source of its enduring power. Why number 1? Because it is the essence of Conrad, a physical journey that is also a moral and psychological ordeal, a critique of empire that is also a timeless meditation on human nature. It remains unsettling, inexhaustible, and unforgettable.